So my name is Lindsay Young, and I am the Chief Difference Maker of New Marketing and also the NAWIC Business Development Council Chair. So we have decided as a committee, as a council, that we would host these every other month. 30-minute presentation with some discussion afterwards. And then on the other month, we are able to kind of plan for the next month. So this month we've got Julie Wanzer from Business Rewritten. Julie and I met actually through the Associated General Contractors Business Development Council that we are on together, and then got the opportunity to meet each other last fall at a Society for Marketing Professional Services conference that we both presented at. So Julie's an amazing presenter, very dynamic, great energy. And so when we were talking about business development in regards to some speakers, Julie was at the top of the list. So with that, I'll turn it over to Julie and she can tell us a little bit more about herself, and then we can dive into the presentation. Also, we'll let you know, I will be monitoring the chat box. So if you've got questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat box and I will halt Julie and we can ask her those. But then, like I said, we'll have some more discussion, just roundtable at the end of the presentation too. So Julie, I will hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. Thanks for that kind intro, right? I know I was going to say, and what a great setup too for the point of our talk today, for tips and tricks of business development that we met on the beauty forum. And now we're going to continue that. So that might be in the presentation, right? Join an association might be on there. But good afternoon, everyone. As Lindsay mentioned, I'm Julie Wanzer, owner of Business Rewritten, and we tell stories in the built environment. You know, I've niched down. I've been working in construction, gosh, for 14 years now. So dating myself a little bit, but along the way have definitely, you know, picked up a lot of the language and the relationships, how things are formed, and, you know, just really how to be successful. So today, let's see, we are going to go over, again, business development and really focusing in on how you can create value for your clients, right? And capitalizing on the trust, that's a big word, and how to win more work, right? I think at the end of the day, as business developers, we're all here to make money, right? And make money for our firms. That's what keeps the lights on, keeps us going, keeps us growing. So really trying to take a deeper dive on what does business development mean, right? And again, how we can use that to win more work. But first, I always like to do a little something about me. This is a smorgasbord of pictures from this past year. It's the love of my life. And there's the bald guy is my boyfriend, right? Love of my life being my corgi right there. I love to travel. Originally from Maryland, the DC area. You'll see that picture there. It's actually at the White House. My nieces and nephew got to go to the egg drop roll last month. So that was kind of cool. And being able to just, you know, travel. I know the past couple of years have put a little damper on my travel plans, as I'm sure they did for everyone. But really being able to get out there and engage just more about who I am. And then of course, Broncos fan. So I don't know what other football is out there. I know I saw that. Boo, right? That's okay. We'll see you. We'll see you in the playoffs, right? Hopefully this year. We'll see. All right. So again, just a little more about me. About 20 years experience. Woo, 19 or 19. We'll go with 19. And again, 14 years of those in the AEC business development. So I worked in-house at an engineering firm in both business development and marketing role. Worked also in an architecture firm, right? A little bit different spin in both business development and marketing. And then since becoming a business owner 7 years ago, I found my way with contractors, right? You guys seem to speak my language. And I've been able to consult with a number of general contractors, from your big ones that are doing, you know, the huge $500 million projects versus the small ones too. And really trying to hone in on what works for them, right? What is that business development strategy? What is that business development culture, right? How are they gaining clients? All of those things. So I like to say, call it the trifecta, right? I've got the architecture, the engineering, and the construction background to really help tell that story in our industry and how to really focus in then and win more work. Do we have something in the chat, Lindsay? I saw something pop up, or got a question yet?
Oh, Nelsie said go Chiefs, and I just laughed. So yeah. So
all right, well, we'll take that. We'll take that. Yeah.
We'll be some bantering, I have a feeling, which is fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, bring it on. I love it. I love it. Russell Wilson. Oh, is that a factor now? We'll see. All right. that, guys. I love it. I love it. Keep them coming. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Right. So at the end of this, hopefully we'll walk away with the following, right? I'm really encouraging you guys to embrace a mutually beneficial business development mindset, right? I think everybody has their own ideas of what business development is, but really focusing in on how can you make that mutually beneficial. The next part is to how to build trust with those clients, right? And what are some strategies that you can use to set that foundation? Again, that trust is a big word. It takes a longer time to develop, but it definitely pays off in the end. And then two, wrapping up with some business development best practices to really create that value for your clients, right? I've mentioned I've had years of experience, but then also two, I interviewed some of my favorite business development people within the industry and just was curious, was asking questions, what worked, what hasn't. So really want to be able to share those tips and tricks with you guys. So if we're ready, I'll go ahead and jump right in. All right, business development. Again, big word. I know there's a small group here, a little more intimate, but I would love to hear from you guys, whether you're in the chat or if you're brave enough to come off mute. What do you think business development is? Anybody?
It's
BD,
about building trust and building relationships.
Yes, that's a big one. What else? Are you here to learn what business development is? Then I'll tell you. All right. Yeah. Again, and the point is that too is that business development has a broad definition, right? And I think different companies, different people take on different meanings of what business development is and how best to use it. One of the most popular ones is tying it to ROI, right? You've got a more of a kind of a sales mindset. Your business development people are there to win work, right? And sometimes that definition, can get skewed, right? Well, did they really win the work, or was that a repeat client? Is that something, do they really do a good job on their lead generation? Right? Kind of opens the door for what that is or may not be. But again, if you focus in on just the revenue and the sales that you're bringing in, it's more of a short-term strategy, right? So if you think about a transactional relationship of, okay, you as the BD person, you bring in the job, your construction firm completes the job, then it's the end of the project, and then you move on to the next, right? There's no continuous, where's the relationship in there, right? If there's a start and an end date, right? And then it affects your bottom line. It's a very short-term strategy. But what happens, and I'm not saying, I guess too, I'll stop there. It's not bad to focus on ROI, right? Because at the end of the day, again, we're here to win more work and make money. But that type of mindset, business development mindset, is great in the short term, right? Or in an ideal economy, right? So, but what happens when, a global pandemic hits, right? And we totally uproots us entirely and changes the way that we interact with people. Or, what if another international crisis happens, right? That's affecting our supply chain, our procurement of materials, all of those things. What I'm encouraging you to kind of wrap your head around is that in order to survive in the long term, you need a more mutually beneficial relationship. And Lindsay hit this on the head. I slipped her that $20 before we started, right? So to really drive home the fact that business development is a relationship, right? And it's mutually beneficial, such that you are by helping others, right? It helps you succeed. So how do you do that? How do you develop that mutually beneficial relationship? And I believe, and truly, I say this over and over and over, beat it over people's heads, that it's based on trust, right? At the end of the day, you want to work with people that you can trust that they'll pick up the phone when you call, trust that they have your back, right? If something goes wrong, because guess what? No projects are perfect, right? So you need to be able to trust the people that you're working with, that you guys are going to be able to solve that problem. And then also being sincere, right? Nobody likes a used car salesman, right? Don't be just, that mentality, again, works in the short term and you can get sales that way, but are you really developing that entire client relationship? So again, these here are some of my favorite words, right? To kind of focus in on for trust. And one of them is, I mentioned being sincere as one of my favorite quotes, that originality is a byproduct of sincerity. And kind of put that into meme speak, right? Or something you can wrap your head around. Basically, it's saying that no one is you, and that's your superpower, right? So when you think about, again, developing trust and building a relationship, you got to think about who you are first, right? Who are you as a BD professional on one hand? Then also think about who you are as a firm, right? What are some of those qualities of your construction firm that make you perfect for that client, right? And what makes you different? Because guess what? Hensel Phelps is not Saunders, right? Clark Construction is not Key Construction, right? There's different things about your firm that makes you great and makes you original, makes people want to work with you, and builds that sincerity. Another big part of that trust, and again, building that foundation of a mutually beneficial relationship, is being consistent, right? You've got to show up. Consistency is key. So when you're so consistent, people have to stand up and take notice, right? So that means you show up to all those pre-bid meetings. You show up to networking events. You consistently getting in front of your potential clients, of your potential trade partners, right? And you're consistent about it. And I love this that Katie says, I don't think people recognize or praise consistency enough, right? It's hard to show up. Even today, like Lindsay said, it might be super nice out where you are. It might be really cold. It's a Friday afternoon. We're all trying to unwind. Maybe it's been a long week, but hey, you guys got the consistency down pat. You showed up, right? You have to be consistent for people to trust you. And again, develop that basis of your business development, mutually beneficial relationship. Another big part of that trust is commitment, right? You got to have a commitment. And not only commitment to your clients to get the job done, but having that commitment to do what you do better than anyone else. Again, it's part of your being differentiators, finding out what makes you unique, right? And sincere and original, then doing it better than everybody else in that lane, right? You know who you are, you know what you do well, you know what your firm does well, and you're doing it better than everybody else. And that's why they want to work with you, right? Because you are committed to whatever that strategy is and how you're moving forward with it. So big words, right? Hopefully we can get on that. So another way to think about it, again, is kind of comparing the two of transactional based relationships versus mutually beneficial. So again, transactional, short-term and objective to acquire new clients and increase the number of sales to meet ROI goals. Again, nothing wrong with this, right? This transactional thing, but it usually comes on in the approach of, okay, let's propose on as many RFPs, throw them against the wall and see what sticks, right? How many of you guys have been at a firm where that's the BD strategy? I know I have, right? And I've been on the marketing side of it too. Yeah, she goes, kind of, right? And so having been on both the business development side and the marketing side, if my BD people are focused on, hey, we've got all these RFPs are coming out, and then you as the marketer are having to then put together all those RFPs, what's that hit rate going to be? Pretty low, okay? If you're just going after everything and you have no intention behind it. And yes, you will land a project that way, right? There is the, the probability of sales, 9 out of 10, 9 people will say no, but that 10th person's going to say yes. But think about how much effort and time and energy you wasted on those other 9, right? When maybe if you had been more intentional, more focused about the RFPs and projects you're going after and focusing on, again, these more mutually beneficial relationships, you could save all that time and money, right? And your hit rate will definitely increase for sure. So thinking about that again, from a different approach, going off the mutually beneficial, what if you hear this? The facility manager asked you to include solid estimates on the solution you discussed last month for the upcoming proposal. Oof, I love that, right? Like, so the facilities manager, who we all know makes a lot of key decisions in construction because they're the ones that are going to have to maintain and operate that building after your firm has come in to build it, right? But if you are already talking, you know who the facilities managers are, You've been talking to them, but way before the RFP comes out, and you're like, hey, you know, what are your pain points? What's working in this current system or this current layout, this current build out? And it's just a question, right? Just be curious. You don't have to, you know, sell them. Again, you are not a used car salesman. You're not going to that facilities manager association and saying, hey, I'm Julie. I'm with, you know, Key Construction. I'm going to do this, this, and this for you. What? First of all, I don't know who you are. I don't, you know, I have no relationship with you. Why are you talking to me? Backpedal there a little bit. But if you're asking them, hey, you know, what's your biggest pain point? What keeps you up at night, right? How can I help you with that? What's worked for you in the past? So you're asking questions, not only to be curious, but to establish that relationship. But in the back of your mind too, thinking about what solutions can either you offer or your company offer that will help that facilities manager, right? And so if you're helping them, they are much more likely to want to work with you versus a cold call, right? People that are just applying to the RFP, or to maybe that one BD person that was in that facility manager's face, but only talked about themselves. You've met those BD people, right? They say, oh, well, you know, I'm this and this and this and this, and they're talking, but they're not listening, right? They're not developing the basis for that mutually beneficial relationship. And even finding out more about that client. Who is that client? Again, how can you help them? Those different types of things. So mutually beneficial, transactional. Hopefully we've gotten into mutually beneficial. Any questions before I kind of go on to the next part, Miss Lindsay?
I don't have any in the chat box. If you guys have any, you can either unmute
Don't
yourself or you can submit it in the chat box if you have questions. So. Okay.
All right, here we go. Just want to make sure you guys are stopping me. All right. So now that we've kind of talked about, you know, what a good definition for business development, how you should approach it, right? So it's almost a mixture of that, a little bit of the transactional, right? Because again, we still want to win more work and keep building, be a power or a source of growth for your company. But also too, we got to say, well, how do you put that into practice, right? Again, so these are some business development best practices we're going to go over that you can just start laying the groundwork, right, for that mutually beneficial relationship. And these are some things that, again, that I have found when I've been consulting for some general contractors, but also too, in having worked in the industry, and then just asking my friends, right? Like Lindsay, like others that are, you know, successful and they're out there in the industry right now, putting these things into practice. All right. So we're going to talk about how you develop a client strategy, right? Who's your ideal client? Yeah. Can we answer that, right? Do you know, or does your firm know, right? Is it based on past history, or is it just, oh, okay, well, somehow we stumbled into this K-12 market. We seem to be doing good, and you know, we're going to keep moving forward. But does that client call you back? Does that client pay on time? Does that client, you know, really include you in the process, or do they view you as the contractor as just the doer? Just get it done. Here's the money. Here's the budget. Here's our schedule. Go do it, right? Think about how that affects the quality of your work, and also how it affects your employees too. Do they like working with that client? I don't know. Think about research, right? Every good business developer that I know does their homework, right? It's all about finding about what's going on in the market currently, the one that you're going after. And what are the industry leaders, what are your competitors doing? Thinking about that. Then also networking with a purpose. I think everybody feels, or there's that common misconception that business development is all about happy hours, golf outings, different things, conferences, right? That smiling pretty face. Nope. Well, I want you to encourage you to network with purpose. And also too, find creative ways to connect, right? Let's get out of the standard, again, the happy hour practice, or, hey, let's do a lunch and learn. Ugh, right? Those are things that make you want to, not really interact with people as much. So let's get creative. Also, too, the best business developers I know are problem solvers, right? They just don't bring in the project and then peace out and not have to deal with any of the problems that happen on projects. Because again, projects never run smoothly, right? That's just life in general. Things are always going to pop up, but it's how you solve those problems that makes the difference between a good business developer and a not so good, or even a bad one, right? And then also too, how can we talk about creating an ongoing relationship? So we're going to take a little deeper dive into each of these. And again, feel free to stop me along the way with questions or other things that you have. All right, so in creating and developing your ideal client, I wrote an article for the AGC, the Emerging Leaders of Business Development Best Practices. How do you redefine success in the AEC industry? And part of redefining that success is defining who your ideal client is. Who do you work with that your firm loves to work with? And I'm talking about love, right? Not just, oh yeah, they're a good, supplier for us. They keep feeding us work. We love it. No, I encourage you to really take a deeper dive and do this 80-20 analysis. And I encourage my clients to do this with the BD team, obviously, the marketing, some of your superintendents, your project managers. I would even throw some of your office administrators in there as well, right? To really think about the whole entire picture of what a client is, right? So you look at their names, the engagement quality, that's the looking at measuring how good was that project, right? Was the project a success, or did you have to pull your hair out the entire length of that project? So ranking those from 1 to 5, then ranking the client quality. And again, this is thinking about your client in terms of, do they pay on time, right? Do they do what they say they're going to do, right? Holding your clients accountable. I think too often business development people feel that they are at the mercy of their clients, and it goes both ways, right? People like working with people they like. So if you dread calling your client, or your client is just the worst and they never pick up the phone, why are you working with them, right? Don't waste your time and energy to do that. So once you've identified, okay, what are the projects like, the engagement quality, the quality of your client, think about how much, then that's where you bring in the ROI factor of how much revenue are they contributing to your bottom line, and really working in all 3 of those factors, right? Because again, we're here to make money. Business development is here to win more work, but it affects the whole quality from the project type, client type, and revenue. So once you've kind of identified that, again, if your client is contributing a lot of revenue and they're heavy on that, oh yeah, we always make good money off those projects, but again, it's a terrible client, why are you wasting your time with them? Obviously, we want more balance between the revenue that client is contributing versus the quality of the client and how they're interacting with your firm, and how they interact with others. And are they recommending you, right? Do they have good things to say about you? You got to find out, got to ask. All right. So then once you've kind of completed that analysis, look for some commonalities, right? What does your ideal client look like? Obviously, there's things of market type. Maybe you are very successful in your firm in the K-12 office market, or sorry, K-12 market, or maybe you're really good in office, or maybe certain teams within your construction firm are really good at hospitality. They're doubling down on that. Okay, good. Let's look for more hospitality clients. You can also look at project size or length, right? Does your firm perform better on these small, quick turnaround projects? Or do you feel that you perform better when it's high dollar values over multiple years, right? So those are kind of basics, but I encourage you then to take it a step further, right? Looking at your client's communication style. Are they responsive? Listen, when you're conducting a project, you have to collaborate with the client and with the owner. And if they're ghosting you, right, or they're not picking up your calls, your texts, your emails, or they happen to be out of the office every time you stop by to pay them a visit, again, why are you wasting your time on that, right? You really want to be able to communicate with your client and have that relationship with them, right? Have them be responsive. They need to have some skin in the game as well. But then also too, think about fears and passions. What keeps them up at night, right? What is really bothering your clients right now? What are they worried about? Is it, the supply chain issues out there? Is it, hey, we're on this really tight schedule and we have to meet this. So we need to do whatever is possible to meet this open date, right? That's especially important in schools. Schools usually start and end at the same time, right? That August 1st or whatever that is, that transition time, it doesn't move, okay? So you need to be able to accommodate that and really know your client and know that that's important to them, that that's their priority. Then on the flip side too, think about, what do they get excited about, right? What are your clients passionate about? And do you encourage those passions, right? Maybe they're really big on giving back to the community. So what if your firm hosted a volunteer event, right? Within that community where your client operates, right? And you invite your client to come. So you're getting excited, you're building on something that they're very passionate about. And again, you're showing that you're interested in them, that you care about your client, you know what's going on with them. All right, I'll take a breath. Okay, identify your common client, right? So then once you find out who that client is, and you've identified their traits and how you and your firm are uniquely situated to connect with that client and meet them at that basis point, you need to do some research, right? You've got to know what's going on in your market. So if you're all about the office market, what are some pain points right now? Biggest one, great resignation, right? No one wants to be in the office. Everybody's quitting. We all want to work from home, do different things. So what are your office clients experiencing right now? How can you help mitigate that, right? How can you help be a solution provider for that client? Also, understanding what's the external factors that are affecting the market. Everyone right now is complaining about supply chain, right? Whether it's from procuring materials or even, the price escalation, right? The cost of steel, timber, all of those things have gone through the roof. And guess what? The economy as a whole, we're experiencing lots of inflation right now. So what is your firm doing, again, to not only be aware of those external factors, but then what solutions can your firm offer, right? There's always something. I always say that there's one thing that you can do better than anybody else. So what is that one thing? What is that solution that you can offer that other firms can't? Right? And then also too, so now that you've identified your ideal client, you've identified some market factors, this is where you kind of need to do your research on competitors, right? Who are the industry leaders right now in the office market? What firms are winning all those projects that you seem always to come in second for, right? Or you may not even get shortlisted for? Who are the firms that always consistently are taking up that kind of work? And then learning more about them, do your research, right? Do they have, a huge business development staff that is out there creating those relationships? Or maybe their pre-con team, their pre-construction is from estimating to materials, those things, that firm is on it, right? So maybe you need to take that information and go to your pre-con guy and say, hey, we need to beef up our pre-construction efforts, right? We're lagging. This firm is doing really well at predicting what's going on in the market and really setting up projects for success. We should emulate them or be more like them. But then on the flip side of that, right, is again, thinking about your differentiators. What can you offer that those firms can't, right? Or won't, right? I think that, again, each construction firm has its limitations, right? And they can't always do everything they want. So maybe that's when your firm or you as the business developer can help slide in and solve that problem for the client. All right. All right. Now, thinking about another business development best practice is to network with a purpose, right? Again, I mentioned before, networking is not just the happy hours, the golf events, the Christmas parties, holiday parties, whatever. You really need to be more intentional with your networking. And obviously one of the best ways to do that, some low hanging fruit, is to join an association, right? But not, I guess the caveat to that, to be more purposeful with which associations you join, think about your clients, right? Think about the full vertical. If you're a construction firm and you're an AGC, that's great, right? Because you will have that basis of what's going on in your industry in the construction market and what's going on and with other competitors, right? You can't help but notice other construction firms of what's going on the more you show up to AGC events. But you have to think about who's hiring you, right? So I encourage a lot of my clients, again, to think of the full vertical and be a part of AIA, right? That you got to know what the architects are designing on the front end. You know, what are they seeing in the market? They're usually the front leaders of knowing what's being developed. Another great association is the Urban Land Institute. That's where your owners and your developers are, right? That's where they're spending their time and effort. You should have some FaceTime with them, right? You want to be a part of that in order to learn more about your client, and also to learn more about the industry. What are the developers facing right now, right? Is it permitting? Permitting is always a problem. How do you guys help with permitting? How do you help make their lives easier? Also too, if your jam is healthcare, join ASHI, right? I know we have KHED too, the Colorado Association of Hospitals Engineering Directors. It's very specific. That is a very specific lane. But again, that's the place where you're going to start seeing all of your clients. If you do a lot of public work, I encourage you to belong to local chambers of commerce, right? Or they have local economic development forums. Follow the money, right? Where is money being invested in your community? Where are the bonds, right? For those K-12 programs. If the more that you are involved in these types of associations that your clients are at and involved in, and are in these associations that have issues that affect your client or affect your market, that's where you need to be and be spending your time so that you're networking with a purpose. So once you found that association, you got to join, right? You got to join a committee. Don't just say, pay your dues to AIA and think that that's going to win you some work. You have to invest some time, right? And that's part of your, that's how I feel, honestly, business developers should be spending a majority of their time, is volunteering for committees. Yes, obviously going to the events, right? Getting that FaceTime, showing up, but really volunteering and planning an event, right? Really figuring out what's going on within the basis of the membership. And again, being committed, showing that consistency. These are things that people will start to take note of and really want to, work with you and interact with you. Another way, another great business development trick is, again, finding those creative ways to connect, getting outside of, again, even the association events, right? These are some volunteer opportunities that, again, I really encourage my clients to get involved with. Habitat for Humanity, it's a great one, right? It has a good message in construction. You're taking the skills that hopefully you and your team members already have and putting it into practice, but doing it for a greater purpose, for the greater good. Another great way is ACE Mentor. So this is where your professionals, you get teamed up usually with a set of architects, engineers, or contractors, and you go into schools and teach them about the industry. So again, if K-12 is your marketplace, I would be part of that ACE Mentor program in a second, because you might be invited to schools that you had never gotten the chance to get in front of. Or maybe while you're there, you happen to see the facilities manager on the way out after you've done a presentation. So you're really connecting with them and you're getting creative. It's not just, oh, hey, did you go to that economic forum? Yeah, that's great. But what are you doing outside of that? How else are you meeting and seeing people in order to get in front of them and really develop, again, that relationship, that basis point, that connection point? So with business development, right? When I'm committing and consulting with a firm, the BD people are usually the happy ones, right? They've got a lot of energy. They're like, yeah, let's do this. You get really excited and you kind of, you're the cheerleader, right? And you land the project, you bring it in to your firm. And then what do? You usually walk away, right? Like you're like, oh, on to the next, right? I really encourage, and some of the best business developers I know are the problem solvers, right? They are following and tracking that project throughout its entire timeline so that when a problem comes up, you're the one that's making the call to the owner, not some superintendent that owner or that client may not know or have any relationship with. You should stay involved with your projects, right? Take some ownership of it and communicate early and often, really identifying with your client, what are those must-haves versus wish list items? Again, identifying those priorities and how can you be that problem solver? How can you help them not only on the front end, but throughout the life cycle of that project? And again, staying in front of them. And maybe too, that's where you can be the hero, right? Because you're the problem solver, you're facing those problems head on. And then the client is already thinking about the next project or the next problem that you can solve for them or your firm can solve for them, because you did such a good job by jumping in, taking the time to figuring out what the options are, how can we best make the best solution to move forward within this budget, right? Within this time frame to stay on schedule. And then again, you come out being the hero and they're like, yes, oh my gosh, Julie is my go-to. I know I can call her. She'll pick up the phone. She'll give me options. And it's not just, again, that transactional relationship. This is mutually beneficial and you're continuing it throughout the life cycle of the project. Then again, right, it kind of again leads into this ongoing relationship, right? So after thinking again about the lifetime of the project, you've got them all excited, you got the job in the door, you got the project in the door, then you were able to problem solve for them during the project. So then what are you doing on the back end? When was the last time you told a client, thank you? Right? I will tell you, those two little words go a long way, right? A lot of, one of my clients that I was advising for, I was like, you should do a thank you party after every project. Why not, right? You're celebrating everything, all the time and energy that your client and your employees put into that project as a whole. And again, it leads to the conversation of, you can do that debrief. You don't need that formal, hey, how was that project going? If you've already said thank you and you're having everybody sit down to lunch and people are sharing stories and talking about the projects, there's your debrief right there, right? Figuring out what went right and what maybe didn't go so right. Then always to please, please, please ask for the next project, right? If you did such a good job, you did all of this pre-work, you have to ask for the next one, because some clients will willingly offer that and say, hey, we're already thinking about you for the next job. But I feel like so many missed opportunities come about when business developers don't follow up on how that project went and then asking for the next one, even if it didn't go well, right? Again, if you, let's say that project had 4 or 5 different issues that came up and they kept coming up, but you were the problem solver, your firm was the one that was staying on top of it and being that knight in shining armor, clients remember that too, right? And say, hey, I'd love to be that problem solver for you on the next project. And you have to ask. You got to ask. You want to get it. All right. Again, this was just an article published with the business development best practices. We reconnect. Some people, again, are a little hesitant about how to say thank you or, reaching out. But sometimes too, when you are meeting with that client and doing that debrief, sometimes you just got to listen, right? And that's the best way to get that information, because a lot of business developers, we're talkers, and I get it. But sometimes I have to shut up. Just shut up, Julie. Just listen, right? Listen for 2 seconds. So really kind of taking that in. Well, that was me. That is kind of the end of the presentation on my end. For more marketing tips, definitely there's a little QR code there, an email list. I promise not to spam you. But yeah, if you have questions or different things, let me know. All right.
Well, thank you, Julie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions as we dive into our discussion, or thoughts with something Julie said?
Any triggers?
You can unmute yourself or you can use the chat box, either one.
I know I just threw a lot out, Jeff. Obviously, I get excited about this too. So
there's so many different aspects to business development for sure. So you can spend days. Yeah, we could spend days doing this.
For sure.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
I have a question. Thank you so much. That's some great ideas and tips. I have a question regarding starting that relationship. So when you're early on starting with a client, or a potential client, basically. And how can you make that interaction easy? Because it's always awkward trying to reaching out to them or trying to create that first connection. So what are some tips to just get a kickoff?
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say, I call it doing your people research, right? Because again, people like working with people they like. And how do you start to develop that relationship or know that you're going to like that person or that client's going to be a good fit for you? I usually start by being a little creeper and going on LinkedIn. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. That's usually my biggest thing. I did it to Lindsay before the Southwest Regional Conference, just kind of going through and seeing, what groups are people part of, right? We obviously, her and I have two connections, the AGC and SMPS, and we're both heavily involved and active in those. But it could even be something as small as, oh my gosh, I went to that same college as you, right? I can't tell you how many times I've won just off of listing on my profile that I went to University of Maryland. Okay. It's a small school, right? Not a big player. But so many people from Maryland are now in Colorado, and that's my connection, right? That's my in. So again, really trying to learn more about that person and almost again from that creeper standpoint, but then finding that connection point and finding a way to, again, initiate that conversation. There is so from using the University of Maryland example, I actually reached out to someone else, our potential client who also went to University of Maryland, and invited them to a alumni mixer, right? And he was like, oh, that's so great. I didn't know there were other, Maryland people in Colorado. And, that's been one of my biggest sources of referrals is from that one other Terp guy. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, right on. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And kind of to play what Julie said, I'll look at their LinkedIn to see if we have any mutual connections. Ooh, and then reach out to one of those people that I have a mutual connection and say, hey, Julie, can you introduce me, to Lindsay? I'd really like to connect with her. And 9 times out of 10, that person's going to go, yeah, sure. And so you can have that more warm, lead or call as it pertains to that. So that's another great way to utilize LinkedIn.
For sure.
Great idea. Yeah. Right. Thanks, ladies.
Mm-hmm. I know we had a question about sending out the slides after the presentation. So Julie's going to send those to me, and then I'll send those out to the group. So you guys will have a copy of the slides.
For sure. And yes, I will include that 80/20 Excel spreadsheet because the numbers are kind of already in there for the engagement. Yes, I know. I love me a template. Trust me. If I don't have to create it, trust, I'm all about sharing, right? That's that having a good resource. But no, I actually recently did that with my own clients, and a lot of them didn't make the cut. I can tell you after looking at it, because again, when you're seeing the time and energy it takes to get that project or to, successfully work with that client, and it's only a little bit of money at the end of the day, you're like, right? You gotta prioritize where you're spending your time.
Yeah. Somebody else also said, I really like staying involved by showing gratitude after a job is completed. So I think, you alluded, I liked the thank you party idea.
Yes, right?
What's other people on the call? What have you guys done from that perspective?
This is Jordan. Hi, I'm sorry, I'm not showing my face.
Oh,
after a big design build or CMAR job, usually, those are a little more expensive. We will take our clients out to do something that they and the team both enjoy. So most recently we took them on a fishing trip, and it was just like a one-day thing, but everyone got to go fishing together and hang out. I have a question kind of spinning off of that. What do you do in the case that your client is not allowed to accept a meal or anything over $15? Is a thank you note enough, or do you have other ideas?
Well, I would say, I think it just popped up in the chat, a handwritten note, right? How many times has someone actually written something to you, not an email, right? But a penmanship saying thank you and bringing up maybe that one thing that went really well on the project, or that one thing you want to help them for. Like, you know what? Thank you for picking up the phone every time I called. I know, it was usually about a problem, but I appreciate that open communication style. I really think those little things go a long way. So are ways to connect with more of your public clients. You're right, that can't take any gifts or, go out to dinner or anything. Other things though.
I know we worked, one of the contractors I used to work for, we had that same issue, but if we sent something to the department, you could send it to a department, but not a individual. So Jordan, you might ask about that too. I don't know. I mean, would be, different than taking them on a trip or something, but, or obviously like an open house, I would assume something like that they could attend. But again, I mean, I've seen a lot of public people at, public owners at, open houses and ribbon cuttings and those types of things. So you just, you have to kind of get creative on where you can invite them or involve them.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other thoughts or questions for Julie, or just comments or ideas or things you've seen that worked or haven't worked?
Well, what is one thing that you guys are going to do differently at your firm from a business development standpoint? One thing you're going to do a little different.
One of the comments was, I'm about ready to implement our first CRM. Please pray for us. Yep.
I got you, right? I'm sure, caution with that. It's garbage in, garbage out. So really, be intentional about what you're putting in the CRM and how you're using that information. But best of luck. Bonfire, yeah.
Yep.
Right. Oh boy.
That's about the truth, Nelsie. That's about the truth. So anybody else have anything they're going to implement from kind of sparking ideas today?
Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and do some digging on this potential client I have of mine. And I do have her on LinkedIn, so we'll just do some more digging and creeping around to get more stuff to talk about for sure.
Right. I mean,
so that's going to get implemented.
It's research. It's
yes,
research.
Research. Right.
Yep, yeah. That's the correct term.
For sure.
Yeah, so.
I'm gonna force some men to write some thank you notes.
What'd you say, Jordan?
I said I'm going to force some men to write some thank you notes.
Yeah. I always
Imagine
tell
that.
mine, I'm like, you got to write some love letters. I know that, you just got to do it. So
I'll probably have to type it for them so they know exactly what to write, and then
right. And that's fine.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
They all need help.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you all. Like I said, I will send out the slides and the spreadsheet from Julie to the group, and you guys will have that, and obviously have her contact information to reach out with her. And you can connect with her on LinkedIn. Obviously, she's out there and posts a lot of good stuff too. So we're both, we're connected there, and I know she shares some good stuff. So everybody have a great Friday afternoon and a great weekend, and we'll see you the next time. Thanks, guys.
Good. Thanks, guys. Take care.
See ya.